talk about how China's immersive entertainment is finding its own voice and how it's changing in recent years. So first, a brief introduction on myself. So I started my career in Los Angeles from Walt Disney Imagineering, and then I came back to China during COVID and worked mostly in Shanghai on immersive theater and AR, VR. And last year, I started my own company working with some clients here in China, creating immersive experiences. So my original presentation in LA was longer, so I'm gonna maybe skip part of it to keep it more condensed so that we have more time for discussion. So the theme is from inspiration to innovation, and I'm gonna skip these two slides. But I want to stop on this one. So there are some differences in terms of the environment we are working at. So a lot of things that might be legal in US or a lot of European countries are illegal in China. For example, psychedelics are illegal, gambling is illegal, and so but do you know what that means for entertainment creators? So actually, I have a secret for to make your experience a business success. The secret is if you can allow the audience to feel like they are doing something illegal legally, then they are gonna be willing to pay a lot of money for that. So because gambling is illegal in China, so actually many shows that includes gambling elements in it but not actually gambling are really successful in China because they can't do this. And because psychedelics are illegal in China, and shows that maybe can create that feeling with music or other ways, and lights and other ways, they are really successful here. So that is something to think about. What are the things that people crave for, but they can't get from their real life? So here is a spectrum of all kinds of immersive experiences in China from 2016 to right now. I'm not going to go into detail, but we can see there are many different types of it, from smaller scale escape rooms and 剧本杀 to large scale theme parks and immersive theater in between. So when we think about so when I'm preparing this presentation, I was trying to think what are the things in this market that is might be different from other markets, and I came down to like 3 points. So the first point is I call it a heritage at scale. So this is a photo from a place called the Kaifeng Wansuishan Wuxiacheng. So Kaifeng is this. It is in Henan province in China, and Kaifeng is the city with thousands of years of history. So when we think about theme parks like Disneyland, we need to know that the land that they built the park itself, it does not really has a theme. It is but when we think about a lot of these theme parks in China, we need to know that the land itself already has a theme because the city has a long history. So when we are building something in a place that has a rich cultural heritage, how can we use that to create our overall theme to make it more appealing? So I think this is a very interesting case study. So here are some facts. So the 外孙山武侠城, it exists there for many years, but it wasn't so popular. Then in 2023, they rebranded to a wuxia world. So the best way to explain what is wuxia is think of it as like a Jedi story, but in an ancient Chinese setting. So it is a genre in Chinese films and novels and games. So most Chinese people know what is wuxia. So they rebrand their park to this wuxia theme, and the guest becomes like a xia in the ancient times in this land. So that made it very popular these years. Last year, it became one of China's most successful, most visited tourist attractions. And something is really interesting for this park. It is a most performance-based park. There's no like ride or roller coasters inside this park, but instead there are 2,000 performers, or we call it NPCs, and 3,000 performances per day. So it is basically a park with just tons of performances. Here are just like a glimpse of these performances. You can just walk into this pretty much feels like a movie set for an ancient time war zone. And there are vignettes of wuxia stories happening here and there. And other than the performances, they also add a game system into this park. So when you enter in this park, you will be given these paper money, but these are like paper money back in the Song Dynasty, 1,000 years ago. So with these paper money, it's like game tokens. You can use these to play games, to do trade with the actors, and to change for these souvenirs. And remember, I talked about the gambling is prohibited thing. So there are these games you can play in the park that has a gamble element in it, but because you're not really use real money, it is not considered illegal, but people can get that fun of like gambling. So these mini games make it a lot more interactive and people really loved it. Uh, and the reason that they built this game system into this park is they actually collaborated with a game company to design some of these game mechanics. So this game, I don't know how many of you have heard of this game, but this game was really popular last year. I think it attracts some international players as well. It is a wuxia themed open world game. And inside this game, the city of Kaifeng is a very important place. So when they rebrand the park, they work with the game company, and some of the scenes in the park looks similar to the scenes in the game. And some of the visitors are players of the game, and they came to this park to find the similar feeling that they get in the game. And some of these interactions are also interactions you might get in the game. For example, you can be a criminal. You can be a criminal. You can be put into a jail, but not the real jail. And people love it because it's not real jail, but you get the sense of doing something illegal. Uh, yeah. So the second trend, the second like special thing that I want to share is I call it from digital to physical. We talk a bit about the game industry in the first section, and I think you already know this, but the game industry in China is huge, and there are a lot of gamers here. And in recent years, there is a trend that a lot of these game companies are thinking of how to bring the digital world into the physical world. So this photo is from the poster Arcane Immersive Musical Performance that just opened at the beginning of this year in Shanghai. I have many friends who work on that project. But this production is huge. But if we look at the history of these offline event of game IP, we can see the trace of that. So, so I know the gamers everywhere they like to do cosplays, and of course in China there are these cosplay parties as well. But then there are these what we call only event where only cosplayer of the same IP or fans of the same character, they gather together in these smaller venues and they took photos together. So for example, this is one of these smaller cosplay party. And from there, there's something called a cosplay commission. So this game is very popular. It's called Love and Deep Space. It's a love simulation game, and that has a huge fan base in China. And because the game is popular and people love these characters in the game, they actually would commission a coser to play their favorite character in the game, and they went on a date together. So something to know that most of these cosers who play male characters are female cosers because females don't feel safe to went on a date with a random male, but they feel safer when the caster is female. So uh, the good casters, the best casters, they actually are. It's hard to book them to be on a date with you. It's basically think of it as like a 1 day long one-on-one immersive performance. So you can see like why this attracts to people, and because the gamer community has this need, so the game company they actually play into that need. So last year, this game, Love and Deep Space, their game company did this immersive activation event in Shanghai. So okay, so in this game, you can have 5 husbands or 5 boyfriends. They're all very different, and because you have 5 boyfriends, you need a huge house. So their activation event was they built this pop-up luxurious house underneath the most like the famous landmark in Shanghai, Dongfang Mingzhu. So and the players they line up to just come into this luxurious house and take photos with the official casters of their favorite character. Uh, and this is not the only company who do these immersive activation event. A lot of other game companies do things like that as well. For example, Star Rail, they do like immersive concerts. They do a huge concert and immersive activations every year. And this game, Reverse 1999, I really like it. They choose like buildings that match their game's theme and do activation events there because of all these things happening in the community. So it makes sense for something like Arcane to happen. So this is a collaboration between Tencent and Riot Games and Punch Drunk and SMG Live. It's a really huge production, and now it's very popular here in Shanghai. If you come here, you can go see the show. Yeah. Um, yeah, and the third trend that I want to share is I call it tech at speed. So this is from a show that I worked on called Three Body Problem Beyond Gravity. So Three Body Problem is this sci-fi, this science fiction written by a Chinese writer, won a Hugo Award and has been adapted into many forms. And there are many things that I can share about this show. But now looking back at it, I think the most surprising thing is actually it was a AI company who produced and invested and produced the show. It was not an entertainment company. So actually in China, a lot of these tech companies, they have a desire to create cool immersive experiences, not just to showcase their tech, but also to it's kind of like part of their branding. They want to paint a brilliant future where technology can make people's life easier or better, and their brand and their technology they're building is part of it. So because of that, these companies are actually willing to invest some money to create these shows. And also in China, I think people are more, I don't think the technology is necessarily more advanced, but I think people are generally more open to use new technologies, even technologies that are not that well developed. So for example, this is from a project my company did last year. From working with our clients, we discovered that they are already using generative AI on like all aspects of their daily life, from creating marketing posts to generating these like videos to a lot of things. It's really integrated with their everyday life. And from my Three Body Problem show, so back then it was designed like 3 years ago. So back then, large language model was not as advanced as today. If you have conversation with the AI after several rounds, you know this is AI. There's something off about this conversation. But even back then, the company is really they really want to maybe integrate the AI technology into the show, even if it's not fully developed. So we did a trick here. So this scene is the characters here are having a conversation with a four-dimensional creature, like an alien civilization. So because the character is kind of alien, so it actually makes sense if it doesn't sound that human. So we actually integrated their AI model into the show, even if it's not fully developed. And when you enter into this beautiful four-dimensional space with mirrors and sound, and you at that moment you wouldn't really question, oh, if this technology is not that mature, you just believe in the world. Yeah. So here are some of the facts of our show. And I think also another thing that maybe you need to know about is actually in China, it's easier for these tech companies to get government fundings or government support than maybe an entertainment company. So because of that, sometimes these tech companies have like better government relationships, and it's easier to get like government approval if you are working with a tech company. Yeah, that's also part of it. Uh, uh, how much how much time I have left? Well, I'm gonna
You got
yeah,
plenty of
I'm gonna
time. You got plenty of time.
okay, great,
Yeah.
great, great. So and these are the three trends, three like something special that I want to share about Chinese immersive industry. And I also want to share a special case study about international collaboration. So I do think that there's still a lot of opportunities in international collaboration. Actually, in China, there's a saying called 外来的和尚好念经, which means like foreign monks chant better. So when you're not from local, people actually think that maybe you can bring something new, something special, and which is why there are a lot of projects happening in China are collaborations between local team and international team. Uh, but recent years, some of the collaborations are successful, but other collaborations are not so successful. I'm gonna for the time being skip the Minhua ship part, but I want to talk about this project, Pudefu Shanghai. So Pudefu is this French theme park that I'm sure you've heard of it. So they actually opened a show in Shanghai in 2024, and they started that collaboration way before that. I think they started the collaboration maybe like at least 5 years before that. And I've heard of this brand when I was in LA, and I was really looking forward for the show. And I know people who work on this show, they put a lot of effort in it. But when it opened, the audience response was not that good. Actually, it was the audience response was so bad that they had to close the show during the preview and try to fix it a bit and reopen it. The audience got so like so upset about the show that they when they come out from the show they ask for that you should give my money back, and because of that they called for police, so it was very chaotic. And why is that? I think that to be honest, the production value of the show is quite high. The set was beautifully built, and there are some interesting experience design as well. There is like a shaking, like a train and a boat. There are some shiny points in it, but the biggest problem is the story. So, the story happened in World War II time in Shanghai when the Japanese army is fighting with the Chinese army about Shanghai. So it's in a historic setting. but then it brings some magic elements into it as well. I think the best way to maybe make an analogy to let you understand why Chinese people get so upset about the story is that, like, think about, well, imagine you are watching like a World War II movie about let's see, the German army fighting like in Paris. But then halfway through the story, the main character discovered like a treasure underneath the Louvre from like a Roman Empire that has the magical power to protect the city from the German army. So it was basically that. So they bring some very unrelated things together. So the Chinese audience was just feel like, well, this is not right. And apparently the story was written not by a Chinese writer. So I think that oh, this is like a Chinese emperor from 2,000 years ago, and somehow he has like a magic thing that can protect Shanghai from Japanese army. So this is really weird. So I think the biggest lesson learned from it is that when it comes to international collaboration, sometimes well, either you do something very original. Like, for example, I believe that if this company, they do a story that's not happening in Shanghai, that's maybe just happening in France, but they create the set in Shanghai with like a whole in French style and based on something from the French history, I believe the Chinese audience will still want to pay for it because this is different. This is something they can't see in their real life, and traveling to France is expensive. But if you are doing something trying to connect with the local history and culture, then you really need to involve creators from this culture to write this. So I think this is the biggest lesson learned. Yeah. Well, this is I think that's the most part of my presentation. I'm gonna leave more time for Q&A. I have like other slides behind if we need, I can pull up. Yeah.
Magic.
This is my contact info if any